Hello, so we have just had a lovely sapphic collection of shorts, and we have one of the filmmakers with us today. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you worked on, and your role in that film.
Hi, I'm Natasha Redmond. I worked on the last film that you saw, Whole. I made everything except for the score. I am an animator, and I make animated films, so.
And where did the idea for this come from? Like, wake up one day thinking, I'm gonna start animating?
So I went through a breakup.
Oh.
I went through my first lesbian breakup. So,
yeah, turn your pain into art, I guess. Are you okay?
I'm fine. This was like 6 years ago.
Okay.
So.
How was it watching it on the big screen? Have you seen it on the big screen?
Yes, I have. So this is the second time I've seen it.
Oh, does it bring back anything? Are you okay watching it now?
Oh, I'm fine. It's one of those things where I worked on it so long, and it was so long ago that it's kind of like I just look at it from like a technical perspective. I think I'd need to lose some distance from it, and then I could maybe come back and see it more from like an emotional perspective.
So, you didn't work on this 6 years ago, did you? The incident was 6 years ago?
The incident was 6 years ago, but I wrote I storyboarded it out. So the whole story was about from like 4 weeks out from the breakup. So I came up with like everything that you saw. The only thing that wasn't in the original storyboarding was the kiss, because it felt weird to write that at the time.
Yeah, no, that's completely valid. How was it kind of being the sole creator? Like, how was the journey of creating this?
Yeah, so I came up with it 4 weeks out from the breakup, and then I didn't touch it for 2 years because it was too emotional at the time. And then 2 years had gone by, and I felt a little bit more of a distance. I had healed enough from the breakup, and I thought, this is basically like, normally it's like I have an idea, and then I'm trying to work through it, like figure out like what's going to happen here. I can't connect these two parts. But this came out completely, ironically, whole. And the character designs were there, and the idea was there, so it really was just like I had to make it. So once I had like the space and the energy to make it, I was like, all I have to do is just animate it. So it was both like the hardest film I ever had to make and the easiest one, because emotionally it was very difficult, but like it was a very streamlined process once it was working.
So do you find you're able to work alone without having to bounce ideas off people?
It depends on what I'm working on. So this was definitely a very personal project. I thought about asking people to help out with the animations, but because it was so deeply attached to that moment in my life that it felt like, no, I have to be the one to make everything that you see. Although like the composer I did collaborate with him. So I sent him the storyboards first before we did any of the animation, and then he came back with the score, and then I animated to the score.
Oh, okay, that is quite interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't worked within animation. Is that a standard
Not
procedure?
necessarily. Sometimes, like the old school animation, they would have like the score, and they would animate to the music, but it's not like standard. Usually the score and composing comes after the animation.
And did you find it easy to bring someone into something so personal? Did you have any issues with the score? Did you have to have back and forth?
My composer seemed to get the idea pretty straight, like right away. Funny enough, he was someone I knew from high school. So I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, I have this like film idea. I know that you're a composer. Would you be interested? And he kind of was like, I sent him like the storyboard, and he got the idea. He's like, no, this is very personal. I really want to be a part of it. So like I said, I've worked on other films in the past that they have been more of that back and forth finding the look, but this was super streamlined. And like I said, easiest film I've ever had to make, and also the hardest film I've ever had to make.
And why did you go for the colours that you chose? Oh.
No, it was just funny because my friends were going to ask that.
Aha! Think of another one.
No, it's the dumbest thing. I picked pink and green because those were the colors of the toothbrushes for me and my ex.
Oh no! Oh, that's a great reason. But also, how did that stick out? You always buy pink. You always buy.
No, because my eyes are green, so she got me a green toothbrush to leave at her place, and her hair was like reddish, and so she had a pink toothbrush, and that's where I picked the colors.
I didn't expect that either. Oh my goodness, That's also, yeah, I won't get into that. That's very cute. Do we have any audience questions other than the one I stole? Yes, at the back?
Yeah, so I noticed there was a distinct lack of the colour yellow in that shot. Can you speak on that a little?
Yeah, so it was a very simple color idea. I don't need to include yellow in everything.
I mean, I think yellow is you should. Yellow's a great colour. It's the best.
It is my favorite color, but unfortunately I didn't put it in the film.
Next time. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Just was it feel like to be included in a short in a queer film festival?
Oh yeah, that's I think is really important, and it was really nice to think that it was recognized both as a queer film, because I've showed it to people and some people don't understand that they're two women, or that's the idea, because they're kind of gender neutral in their presentation. I didn't give them big boobs, also because it would have been weird with the holes, you know. But I think having it be, I was actually laughing when it was shown, because I was thinking of and then here's about a lesbian breakup, you know. But I think showing not just obviously queer joy and queer love and stuff like that, but we're all people, and people go through heartaches, and sometimes you don't have the best experience, but you learn from that and you grow and you become better. And I think showing the whole diversity of the queer experience is important. So I'm glad that it was included in that, not just as a film about heartbreak, but about queer heartbreak specifically.
No, I think it's absolutely. Queer joy has been one of the topics that's been quite reoccurring throughout the festival, and it is that you show the whole spectrum, and that it does include breakups. Whether they end well, whether they don't end well, it's a reality. Do we have any more questions? If we do, I can't see.
Any more softball questions for my friends?
There's one over here.
So, thank you so much for sharing the film. It's beautiful. I just wonder, looking at the wider political world we live in at the moment, does it concern you about making queer films, or does it make you feel more determined to make them, or not at all?
I mean, I've always made films from a personal perspective. This is probably my first queer film. I've made 2 other films beforehand, and they weren't necessarily about queerness. I am obviously queer, so that is a part of me. I think I've always tried to make things that feel authentic. I don't like doing something just for the sake of politically doing something. I support everyone who does what they feel is right for them. But for me, I feel if this makes sense as I'm making this as a queer film, then that makes sense. But I'm not doing it specifically because I'm I need to make a political statement, because I don't think that it, for me personally, comes from the best space to me. It's if I can be authentically myself and I'm expressing what I feel and have experienced, I think that can sometimes reach people a bit easier than if I say I'm trying to come at from a agenda perspective. And I think that's what I liked about the films that were shown, is that they didn't feel like they were coming with an agenda. They just felt like they were coming from people's experiences.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And there was one at the back.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you obviously came up with the idea through a very difficult time in your life, and then you took a bit of a break to come back to it. Did the narrative adapt and change as you had time to process the emotions in the event, or was it pretty faithful to your initial concept?
That is a great question. It is very, what you see on screen is basically everything that I had drawn out the first 4 weeks after the breakup. I thought about changing it, actually. For a while, me and my composer were maybe going to add a epilogue part where she finds another person. And I had storyboarded that out, and I sent it to him, and he could not come up with the score. He couldn't make it work. He's it's just not working. And I'm maybe it's just a sign that that's just not, because the thing was, at the time that I was making this, that's where I felt that I was. I'd processed this breakup. I wanted to move on to new relationships and new love. But I think it was the sense that I had to be authentic to the girl that wrote it. And so if I changed it to who I was now, I think that I was being inauthentic to her, because she was the one who wrote it, and I had to almost honor that by not changing it, even though I feel differently about it now.
I think you made the right choice in staying true to the original idea, because you could write it now, and it would be a completely different story.
Yeah.
So when you do work on shorts or films in general, do you aim to try and keep a full queer cast and crew? Like, is that something that you strive towards when working?
Well, generally I tend to pick people that I know, which also tend to be queer people as well, or people that I work with. Normally I work in video games, which also happens to have a lot of queer people as well. There's an overlap between gays and gamers. But generally, I haven't worked on like a big enough project where I've had to find like people outside of like kind of my immediate sphere. Also because I don't pay anyone, because everything's free. I've made that just on my own. If I was paying people, then I would definitely, depending on what the film is and what the project is, I would look for people that I feel can connect with the project. But this has just always been something that's just a passion project on the side, made this in my bedroom sort of thing.
And so after its festival run, will it be available to be seen anywhere else?
Yeah, probably on my Vimeo page and my website, or maybe on YouTube as well. I usually keep things on Vimeo, but I know people like to put things on YouTube because normal people go on YouTube, they don't go on Vimeo.
And one final fun question. If you could remake any film in the world, but animated, what film would you turn into an animation?
I had one, but I can't say this one anymore because J.K. Rowling is a transphobe.
Valid.
How would I make animated? Because I think animation doesn't get enough credit as like a medium. I think that some of my favorite films ever made have been animated films that people will be like, well, I don't watch that because I don't watch animation. I'm like, what do you mean you don't watch animation? If I were to make a film, again, the problem was like I had the Harry Potter, but I'm like, I wouldn't make that anymore. It's back in the day.
Alternatively, if you could, I guess, turn any animated film into a live
No.
action. They're already doing enough of
No, wrong. I just think more things should be adapted in animation. I think video game adaptations should be more focused on being animation adaptations because I think animation as a medium can tell things that it's harder to tell.
Do you have a game in mind then?
Now they're actually making good adaptations, like The Last of Us and Arcane. My favorite game when I was a kid, which they did try to make an animated film and then it never got released, was called Sly Cooper. But they never did that. They canceled it. It was very sad. I think I generally have liked the direction animation has gone in recent years, where they've actually like leaned into the style and what makes animation unique and good. And then also you have Disney live actions that just taking out all of the joy.
Yes.
So
I hope that your next few films aren't going to be very trauma-based. I hope that you don't have to go through stuff like that again.
What do they say? Like, what's bad for the heart is good for the art.
I guess so, yeah. But thank you very much for submitting your short and coming to Swatter.
Well, thank you for showing it. Yes.
Thank you.